Hey, welcome to Lessons from the Boot. I'm your host, Ms. Brittany, and every week I dive deep into the personal growth and development that living here in South Italy teaches me, in the hope that you can gain some inspiration from it wherever you may be in the world. Now, I wish I could take credit for the title of today's podcast episode, but credit where credit's due. It was actually my colleague who inspired the title of today's episode. And it's an interesting concept because the Amazon culture. This is definitely a way of life now and a mindset of a lot of people, regardless of the product or service that it's connected to. Now, I'll give you an example. As most of you know, I teach English here in Italy, and with that role, there is a high expectation placed on teachers in terms of their availability and in terms of the quality of service that they provide. But this Easter was something exceptional because I actually had students who wanted to have lessons on Easter Monday. Now, Easter Monday in Italy, as it is in most countries around the world, is a public holiday. In fact, it's affectionately known as Pasquetta, which is Little Easter. And for this reason, although there will be some services that will be open, they're typically only open for half a day, namely supermarkets and some like essential businesses. But predominantly it's a public holiday here. And so it is regarded as a day of rest. And yet there were some students that almost expected to be able to have lessons on this day. And my opinion around that is that it is connected to this Amazon culture where people expect services to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Much the same as you can log on to Amazon on a public holiday or at a weekend and be able to order anything you want, wherever you may be in the world. It's kind of this mindset that crosses over into many other sectors and businesses in life. And I think it's quite a dangerous mindset sometimes because not every sector is built like Amazon. Amazon is an absolute beast, but behind the website interface that you see, there is a complex and clever framework and kind of supply and production chain that makes up that company, which means that, of course, they are able to give their staff breaks and they're able to give their staff holidays and days off. Like, you know, it's a well-oiled machine, but it's on a massive scale. So, of course, there is the infrastructure in place to be able to offer that kind of service. But that doesn't cross over into every industry, especially when it comes to teaching. And this is something where I think people don't really realize that teaching is a very demanding job. It's not necessarily physically demanding because depending on how you teach and where you teach, you predominantly are sedentary for most of the day. However, it is mentally demanding, especially when you have different students with different levels and different requirements and needs. And you often have lessons that are pretty much back to back. So you don't even have a lot of time to kind of switch your mind between the different students before you have to start again. And so in that kind of job, it is essential for people to have a break and to have a rest and to take the necessary time to reset and refresh, because that is essentially what is going to impact the quality of teaching. But it is so interesting how people pay for a service, and then with that, there comes this expectation that you are going to be available to them 24/7. They can request a lesson on a day which is a public holiday for the rest of the country, and they almost expect you to have to work. Like this kind of attitude, I really don't agree with. And it's where this kind of Amazon culture gets taken to the extreme. Because it's one thing to be able to order a microwave on a Saturday night, but it's quite another to request teachers to work when the rest of the country is resting. Like, you know, it's a totally different situation, I would suggest. It goes without saying as well that the introduction of artificial intelligence into our lives and how it is continuously evolving is only going to feed even more into this Amazon culture, where people are going to become more dependent on having products and services at their fingertips as and when they need them to be. And whilst I think there can be many advantages to this kind of flexibility, particularly if you lead a very busy life, I kind of think we have to be realistic when it comes to the in-presence interactions we have with certain services and professions, and understand that that kind of mindset doesn't work in every single area of life. And that's a really important thing to remember. Because if we really value the quality of service that we receive, we have to respect the person who is offering that service to you. We have to respect their time, the way they feel, their ability to rest and recuperate. And we don't show that respect when we expect people to drop everything that they're doing, to cancel holidays, to be available at the drop of a hat. There is no respect for that person and the quality of what they're going to do for you. And I think this is the distinction that we have to make. I've seen how artificial intelligence is leaning more into language learning, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that evolves over the coming years. Do I think AI will replace teachers? No, because it is a very different interaction when you're communicating with essentially a robot in terms of when you're communicating with a human. But do I think that that kind of service will fill a gap in the market? Yes, I do. And it will fill a gap in the market for those people who, like I experienced, wanted to have lessons on public holidays and want teachers to be available around their schedule. And so I think this kind of service can definitely fill a gap in those kinds of markets, but I don't think it's going to be something that will be for everyone. And so I guess this is the point I wanted to make in this episode. We do have a culture now where we expect things on demand. You know, even services like streaming services have that kind of mindset built into it where you can watch something whenever you want. You don't have to wait for it to be released. So I feel like we have to respect and remember, though, that that kind of concept works well in certain sectors, but not in all sectors. And I feel, you know, we have to remember the human side of life, because let's face it, a lot of these on-demand services are powered a lot by technology and powered by automated systems, and not necessarily by an actual individual person who is operating that particular platform. And so we have to remember the more human side of life, the ability to rest and recuperate, the ability to respect a person for their skills and service, and actually, you know, give them the necessary space to do the job well and to do it at, you know, their peak performance. We have to remember that, because as humans, we are not robots. We are meant to take breaks. We are meant to, you know, recuperate and refresh, because essentially that makes us more creative. It makes us more efficient. It makes us able to produce better work. And so I guess I wanted to really capture this today, because I found myself feeling very frustrated by these requests regarding Easter Monday lessons. And it just got me thinking so much about how people don't even realise what they're saying nowadays. We're so used to having everything on demand. They don't even really think about the implications that these kinds of requests can have on other people. So I hope that this episode might make you think a little harder the next time you expect something from somebody who is actually providing a physical service to you, as to whether or not your request is reasonable, and also as to whether or not it really respects the quality of service that you expect from that particular business or individual. I will see you in the next episode.